We're trying this again, everybody. So, you missed the most brilliant introduction of all introductions ever given because I was streaming to the wrong source. Apparently, once you tip over like the 32, 33 age bracket, live streaming escapes you. So I don't know. I had issues yesterday in a conference where I was like talking into an empty virtual room. So, anyways, I'm Jesse and I'm developer relations at GraphCMS. I am not a professional streamer. You will figure that out quickly. Today I have Luis with me from Vercel. I'm super excited about that. Luis, can you give a quick introduction about yourself?
I'm Luis Fernando Alvarez. I'm from Colombia and I'm part of the NetCS core team at Vercel. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be exciting. I mean, and I mentioned this in the first dry run of our introductions. Basically, we work like in the same ecosystem. We kind of do like similar things. You guys are the delivery platform. You make an amazing framework. You make an amazing delivery platform, and we power a lot of content for these projects. And so we always kind of sort of revolve in the same ecosystems, but we haven't done a lot of like direct collaboration together. And I think this is the first one that we're actually directly like screens on the our faces on the screen doing something together. Yeah,
Yep.
very cool. And where are you calling from today?
So I'm calling from Colombia. Yeah, I live in a department called Antioquia. Um, I'm very close to a very well-known city called Medellin because all the narcos series that are on the internet. Yeah, I work from home since I joined Vercel and I've been having fun.
Very cool. I'm picking it up on the other end of the hour spectrum over here in Germany. So one of us is going to be getting more tired. I have some coffee on standby in case I need it. So I think this is going to be engaging content, anyways. For the audience's benefit, I definitely dumped Luis the last minute to tell him that, by the way, you're also the one coding today. So since I set up this 5 minute deploy that I've kind of been promising, I thought it was only fair. Um, I thought it was only fair that I actually would do I would let somebody fresh take it on. So that should be really interesting. I'm just going to check the chat here, make sure everybody's able to see and hear just fine. Is everybody able to see and hear before we get into this 5 minute thing? Just checking there. Checking the chat. Super chatty audience. Developers, they just kind of sit back and they just kind of like
Yeah, that's very
they'll
shy.
enjoy. They'll enjoy. Yeah. So the one feedback we're getting is that the resolution is a little bit small on the screen. So we'll have to just kind of bump up a little bit, maybe do some Command plus action to try to bump the screen size, but we'll do what we can. So I would say I'm going to pull open my phone and I'm going to set up a timer and I'm going to hold it to the camera, real low tech style. We're going to start the timer and see if we can actually uh, get this going here. So I'm going to do the stopwatch mode, and are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
5 minute deploy. All right, so
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and do this real low tech style here. This is high quality entertainment. So, and we're starting the timer. All right, good. So the first thing we're going to need to do is actually bootstrap the GraphCMS next template. So you can definitely use the next CLI for that. The name of the example is just CMS dash GraphCMS. Maybe you can bump your terminal font size up so people can kind of see
Yeah,
what we're going to
you
be
can see my
doing.
screen here.
What's that?
You can see my screen already.
We can see your screen. Yeah, I think
Okay.
you're actually displaying like our video feed in the background as
Yes.
well. There, but yeah.
So I'm going to use create WhatsApp.
Yeah. Can you maybe bump the font size in the terminal just so people kind of see what's happening?
Yep.
Maybe 2 or 3 more. Go real chubby with the font there. What we're going to do is we're going to go the 5-minute real fast blitz through this, just kind of show what we're doing. And then we're going to, so we can kind of prove that it's a 5-minute deploy. After we do that, we're going to then talk through the individual parts and actually kind of dissect it a little bit, figure out how do the pieces work from the Vercel side, from the Next side, from the GraphCMS side, and show what's actually happening. So we'll get this thing going.
So this is the name of the example, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, I'm going to call it GraphCMS app.
So while that is bootstrapping, let's go over to GraphCMS and get you set up with an account.
Okay.
So just graphcms.com and go ahead and sign up for a new account there or log in if you
I'm
have
not
one.
sure if I already have an account. I'm going to check.
I won't be offended. It's okay.
Well, why am I going to use Google? I have GitHub already. I don't have an account.
All right. There's a first time for everything. What's the screen you're getting there?
I was asking me to wait. Okay, welcome to GraphCMS.
All right. So let's go ahead and pop in there. So I'd say, okay, start tour, skip tour. We'll go over that later.
Continue. Get started.
I guess this is a real honest. So what we're going to do is actually do blog starter. So that is actually designed in specific to work with this example. So we'll go ahead and click on that and choose a area that's closest to you, probably the East Coast US. Give it a name for your project as well.
Yeah, .NET.CS block.
It's important to make sure you leave that checkbox for the copy content. So you have it already enabled. It's just you'll want to have that for the example to work properly. And we're going to go ahead and hit create the project. So we're going to be really flirting with this 5 minutes here. So go ahead and grab the personal account, just set up a free account there. And what we're going to do then is, again, we're going to just do this really fast, and we're going to hop in there. It's the Vercel, there's the Next.js scaffold setup. It's all done there, yeah?
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and connect that to a Vercel instance?
So that would go Vercel.
Because what we're going to need to do is add our environment variables from GraphCMS into this one here.
I guess I don't want to override the settings.
No, because it's just detecting that it's Next.js and all of that. So while that's happening, let's pop back over to, or you can even browse the file system in the project. We're going to look at the env template so we can grab the name of the environment variables that it's looking for. And it's env.local.example, I think, is the name. Yeah, just open up a code editor. So if you just open up. What's that?
Okay. I was adding more zoom.
If you go to the env example,
and the local.example,
we need to add all of those environment variables to Vercel. So what we're going to do is grab the project API first.
Okay. Oh, I mean,
Do you
in
know how to
the
do it from the
Vercel dashboard, right?
command line?
Yeah.
We can also just go straight up and do it as well. But now, one of the catches, and we'll discuss this later, is with Vercel, you have the different environments. So you have like the deploy target, you development branch previews, and then you have the master branch previews. We'll just do this on production because typically, if you just type Vercel in the command line to deploy it, it's not going to production just yet. So that might be a gotcha for some people. But if you go to settings inside of GraphCMS, it's down there in the bottom group of buttons. And it's about the second one from the top there, in the
Oh, right.
bottom group. And go to
Uh,
API access on the left column there. And then copy the endpoint. We'll just paste that into Vercel. We'll go ahead and grab the next env name that we need, which is that prod auth there? Yeah, so the prod auth. There's multiple auths here because we support preview URLs. We can discuss that here in a minute as well. But you'll need to grab at the very, very bottom. There's two tokens. One is dev auth, one is prod auth. So make sure you grab the prod auth. And then we'll go ahead and add that.
and then get the auth token
Dev auth, yeah.
would be this one right here.
Yep. And then the last one that we need is just a random secret that we're going to create for our preview URL functionality that can be anything such as next is awesome or whatever you want to. Anything. Super secure.
That could be
So
anything.
with that, yeah, it's going to be anything. With that, we can go back over to Vercel. We can deploy. Because it crashed because there was no emps, right? So we have to
I
trigger
can
deploy.
hit deploy here again.
VC prod, yeah, Vercel prod.
All right.
Am I the only one that uses the VC short form of the CLI, by the way?
I usually don't use the CLI, so I don't really have a big understanding how to use it. I just go git push.
Yeah. The git deploy is also pretty fantastic. And maybe you can help me figure out a more smooth way to include these. We'll talk about this here in a minute once it goes up because I have some questions as well about the environment variables and the best way to configure that these days.
I think the example array has a way. If you are not wrong, I think, let's see this.
We have the local environments. You can run it locally.
But
this was deploying on Vercel.
Example also has like this deploy button.
Let's check it real fast. If you go back, because we were doing the timer, we're over the 5-minute mark, but let's see if we can keep it underneath the 10-minute mark. Let's see if we got the. Let's take a look. Big money.
Works.
Okay, so 8 minutes, 9 minutes, just under 9 minutes. We'll go ahead and set the timer on that. So, not a true 5-minute deploy. I will have to record a video to prove that it is a 5-minute deploy. But I mean, okay, so still less than 9 minutes. We have hooked up a headless CMS with a React framework, and we're running that inside of a serverless environment. That's kind of cool. And I mean, all you have to do is put this on GitHub, and now you have CI/CD as well. So this is some pretty fantastic stuff that we can now start to kind of break apart and discuss what's happening here. Let's go ahead and kind of dissect here, and I'm going to just check to see if there's any questions here. We have one person in the audience there. Hi, Lars. A little shout out. So let's go ahead and see what's the first thing to discuss. Let's discuss how the preview URL works. And then that kind of already opens the floodgate of questions about Next.js. How does this work? How does this all? What were the pieces we put together? So if you go back to GraphCMS, and we're going to go in the top left set of buttons that are on the left, there's a content editor. I think the third one down there. Yeah. Yep. Maybe you can bump up the screen size like a Command plus plus or something. Yeah, there we go. Let's just grab one of the posts there, and we'll just do like a pre-appended draft on one of the titles. If you hit the pencil there next to it, yeah.
Okay, technical SEO with GraphCMS.
So we're going to pre-append like a little draft flag on that or something, just so we can see how that looks. Important in this case is to hit save, not save and publish. So that way we only have we have two different content stages, draft content and published content. So we have now the saved version. If we go ahead and grab that slug there, which is what we need for the preview URL functionality, and we go back to our live environment, and if I remember correctly, it's /API/preview, and then the URL parameter is slug, but we can also confirm.
Also the secret, right?
And the secret, right?
Is it called secret? I think it is.
I think it is too.
And it was anything.
Yeah.
Yep, it is working.
So here we have now the ability for previewing content that is not yet published inside of a draft mode live on our website. And how this is happening is that basically we've authenticated with the server in Vercel, saying that the secret we're passing in is the secret that we've provided as that environment variable. So I think we have a lot to unpack here about what actually is happening. So which one should we tackle first, do you think? Should we tackle Next first, or Vercel first, or GraphCMS first? What do you think?
I can go over the Nest.js internal first.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. So first I'm going to open the normal website. Oh, this is still in preview mode. I'm going to exit preview mode. I'm going to open it up again later. So in this mode, this is just the usual website, and here all the content comes from GraphCMS. What Nest.js is doing is we are using one of data fetching methods called getStaticProps to populate the page with all the content that comes from GraphCMS, and then we export that content as static HTML. So when I go over, for example, the network tab, and I refresh this, the request for the site is 100 milliseconds, which is the closest edge server that is close to me. So this is very important because what I'm currently doing is I'm only loading static assets, and let's say there are tons of people coming to this site. They will get the fastest experience possible because they only have to download static assets, and those static assets are the same for everyone, which is the biggest advantage over over serverless functions or custom servers, where you have to, like, for every request, create the HTML and send it back. In this case, we already have the HTML. We only have to pay for the bandwidth that is required to give that HTML to the users. And the same goes for every post. So here is always static HTML. If I reload the page, it's incredibly fast. We also take advantage of caching and many other things. That's where Vercel comes in. Vercel has first-class integration with Nest.js, and so you only have to run Vercel, and your Nest.js app will be immediately in production. And with Vercel, we can make sure that these static assets go to all the edges around the entire network. And so it doesn't matter if you're like me in Colombia, or if you are in Europe or in the United States, you'll get connected to the closest edge. And in other cases, it might even be faster than mine, because right now I'm connected to the United States. And this has a lot of advantages over serverless functions, because if you have to, for example, have a serverless function, um, you will first have to also make a request to GraphCMS for the data. In this case, you don't have to, because the data was already popular at build time. And you also don't have to pay for serverless executions, and you don't have to like worry about where is the database or and many other things. You don't have to create this for every request.
I want to come back to what you mentioned. So the template here is using the get server side props, and I
Get set
teased.
props.
Oh, this is using get static props.
Yes.
Okay, so this is something that I've been in the Jamstack space for a while, not the streaming space for a while, but I've been in the Jamstack space for a while. Going back to Jekyll and even Middleman, which was a beautiful one back in the day. And there, Next has really done something that a lot of these frameworks haven't actually accomplished yet, which is being able to really create just these super clean primitives around a hybrid Jamstack approach.
Yeah.
You could kind of say, right? So one of the difficulties, especially when you're talking about fetching authenticated content, not authenticated, but yeah, authenticated content with the draft content, is that you would have to kind of figure out how would you be fetching that content, because from a traditional pure static site you have an issue with the client's all of a sudden now aware of what your auth token is for protected content. You don't want that to be happening. And so there's two methods that Next.js has, and that's the get static props, which says, okay, get all this content at build time and build these HTML pages for me. So that's fine, static HTML. The other one that I think is being used actually it's not being used in this context, but you could also have done is the get server side props, right? Which then says run this in a secured environment directly on the server, which, I mean, the ability to just kind of hop out like that and be able to go into a server context is so incredibly powerful and so freeing. And it's actually being utilized, this server context is being utilized in this preview flow because it's using API routes to do that, right? And can you explain a little bit about what's API route, or what are API routes in Next.js?
Yeah, so Next.js is completely hybrid. I think there is no other framework that can say that it has that kind of advantage. So what that means is I can have this page, for example, and instead of doing static generation, I could do client-side rendering, meaning just load that loading state and then to fetch the data in the client. Or I could also go for get server-side approach, which would allow me to make this page into a serverless function, load the content, and run a function for a request, and then load the content. That's very useful if you need like always the most up-to-date content. Although for example, data fetching, we also provide revalidation. So if you need content updated to the second, that is also possible in this case. And Next.js also provides API routes. So with API routes, for example, API preview, this is an API route. So I have a /API/preview. And if I actually go to the code, you can see that in pages, we have this index page that handles the example, the blog posts. And then we have a page for every single blog post. And then in the API folder, this is a special folder in Next.js. We can add a file, and every file is a serverless function where we just export a function. And this is a handler, an HTTP request handler. And here you can do anything you want. Send a response, and this won't be using any React. This will be just Node.js. And this way you can actually have an entire API running in SES too, without having to use any other additional dependency or anything else. And in the case of API/API/preview, this is a serverless function. So here I can send some params and send the slug, the secret, and when I load this, it is going to run this function right here. It does some stuff to enable preview mode for the app. And there I just run a serverless function in Vercel.
Yeah, because it's doing the redirect, right? So the serverless function
Yep.
is getting the secret, comparing it with the
There it is,
environment
secret.
variables on the server, and then it's redirecting it back to that slug that it was passed in for, and changing then. So what it does then is it sets a cookie, right, on the client that says, okay, this is now a trusted environment, and it's now allowed to use the dev auth token that we passed in. So with GraphCMS, you can say this token is only allowed to access the published stage of content, and this token is only allowed to access the draft stage of content. And then if you have both of those inside of environment variables, you can switch inside of GraphCMS or inside of the front end or back end in this case, and say, okay, now use my draft token to fetch content.
Yeah, and going more deep into preview mode, which is currently enabled. So yeah, it works by setting up a cookie. So this link is supposed to like be private, like only people you wanted to know will know it because it is a secret. And so what happens is that once you're in preview mode, the page switches to be a serverless function. So I'm no longer loading static content, but instead I'm running a serverless function that will get me the most updated blog post. And this is very useful when you want to, of course, preview a blog post or you want to share with someone else to reuse and etc. So if I were to change the title again, save it, and then refresh the page in preview mode, it's just going to show me actually the same blog post.
Are we
Once
on the same? We're in the same article. Is it still the technical? Probably. Let's try
okay,
some.
stuff that happens in life. Yeah,
So it's there. It's there. Yeah.
so it might be that maybe the preview token only works for that last update. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I've This is conspiracy theory talk here.
Yeah.
I have noticed that some configuration of Chrome plugins I have interferes with the, and like really vanilla Chrome configuration interferes with Vercel's behavior for preview URLs. And I've had more success running in incognito mode where I have zero issues. But if I run inside of any kind of a standardized, typical logged in Chrome browser, I don't know. I'm not sure. There's something there I haven't taken the time to debug because incognito works just fine. But I don't know. Maybe it's something related to that. Like I said, that's conspiracy talk. Maybe it's the hour. Yeah, that's so. I was curious though. So I know that Vercel's got some pretty generous free tier for stuff. It has a limit of 12 serverless functions on the free
Yes.
tier. So
Yes.
with a preview URL, does that qualify as one serverless function, or does it count if you're using preview URLs for all the pages that you're previewing? Do those turn into serverless functions?
So that's surely called as one serverless function. And the other thing is that in the future, in the very, very soon future, we are going to ship a new feature into Next.js called common shared lambdas. It is actually done already. It is in like Canary version as an experimental feature. And what it would allow you to do is to create a single serverless function for a lot of the serverless functions that you have. So that should reduce a lot of the stress about I can only have 12 serverless functions in a deployment.
That sounds quite exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we are currently in the testing of that feature.
So I have a question. I remember looking up because there's a lot of powerful primitives in Next.js for the API routes. Is it possible to have a serverless function act as a catch-all? Can you define a serverless route that basically is hit on every single page that is visited and then just redirects? Because I'm wondering if we could potentially try and do a little live code hack here to fake a, or maybe we can do something. We'll do something a little bit more easy. One of the things that we can do with this system and with a system kind of like with GraphCMS is we could also enable kind of like a like button. And maybe we can see about actually doing like a little heart button on this in a minute if we have some time after we've discussed how Vercel works and how GraphCMS works. But with GraphCMS, we support full mutations as well. And so what that means is that you can actually write data back into GraphCMS with the same primitives that you read data out of GraphCMS. So using an authenticated server-side execution environment like Next provides, you can now write data right back into your server. So you can make a very simple route that says like, and you could implement some kind of a logic to check against, like abuse or whatever. But then, you could actually increment the data inside of GraphCMS using that like button. So maybe that can be a stretch goal to see if we can actually get there. I wanted to ask another question then about Vercel in this case. So you were mentioning that about it, reading from the closest node. So once this content is generated with Next.js, so once the static pages are built and the assets are cached, then so that basically then gets distributed like to all of these different node locations.
Yes.
That's handy.
Yeah, it just happens automatically. We distribute all your static assets across multiple and different edges. You don't have to pay for that. You don't really have to pay for anything about all the data that you might be putting into our edges. You only have to pay for the amount of serverless functions, and also I believe for uh, the time that you run your builds. But for example, bandwidth is also unlimited. Uh, I would say it is a very good product for first hobby projects, then for any production ready application, and it is incredibly cheap.
With that being on the node locations, is there a mechanism in Vercel specifically for handling cache invalidation? If you wanted to say, for example, another really cool thing. I'm jumping between the entire stack here. But so in GraphCMS, we just announced today free webhooks on the developer plans, which is like woohoo. I mean, that's like huge. Webhooks are now free. But is there a way to say flush the cache on the next visit, so we could potentially say when I change content in GraphCMS, go ahead and trigger like my cache flush function on in Vercel, or how does cache validation work?
Yeah, so there is an unofficial way of doing it and a planned feature for it. Currently, the way our pages work is you can set up revalidation is a one-line code change. You basically put revalidate and then set it to the amount of seconds that you want to have between revalidations. So that can be as low as one. So whenever someone enters your website into the page that has revalidation, if it is 1 second, so he enters and we trigger a background revalidation, meaning the page will be compiled again to static HTML. And once that's done, the new static HTML gets cached and gets served to all the incoming users. That only happens once. That can happen only as much as once every second. it doesn't matter if you have million of views in that specific page, because the revalidation will only happen like 1/32, and then it gets served again to all of your users. So what you can do the unofficial way is you can set up a webhook that triggers an API route, and that API route will make a request to the page that has to be changed. So just a request for the HTML, and that should trigger the revalidation. So whenever someone goes again to the page, it is already revalidated.
Could we code that up? Do you think? Do you think we could actually do that?
I never done it before, but yeah, I can do it.
So that only works for get server side props, right? Not for get static props, because static props is a build time method.
Yeah, but get side props is the one that can be revalidated.
Get server side props. So what we might need to do is change our index page to use get server side.
We have get side props. No, so if we change this to get server side props, it will be just a serverless function that will always run for every request. That's first expensive. Second, it can be really replicated to multiple edges, because again, it is going for data that might be in a different server.
Also, yep. It's only get static props that you can revalidate.
Yeah, because get server side props will always get you the layers content. So in get side props, it is a single line change. So I could say stable revalidate, because it's not yet released, and set it to 1.
I'm just going to get yelled at. Can we bump that editor size?
Kind of like this.
I think that works. Yeah. Okay. Unstable revalidate. Yeah. So like you were saying, the unstable is because it's still a canary feature and it's not officially deployed. But they're usually pretty good to work with.
It's been working for months already. Yeah. We haven't released it yet, but next release is going to be there 100%. So, and we really recommend it to use it, even though it has the unstable name. It's going to be changed quite soon, and it is, again, a single code line change. So once you set the revalidate prop, this page will get revalidated on the background every 1 second.
Okay. And that's the official way, right?
Yep.
And the unofficial way with the API request to the route that needs to be updated is, yeah.
So this is the thing. Usually this should be enough. Like if, let's say you have a blog that has a lot of visits, only one user, like let's say you update the content, only one user will see the old content, and then every user after that will see the content that was generated after that user triggered the revalidation. Is that clear?
So the workaround is basically still using this, but using the webhook to make a server visitor to the page, which updates the content. Okay, let's try it. So, okay. I mean, because it's showing off the power of this of the API routes and webhooks, and I think it's a happy marriage here. Let's save that and then make an API route that will then call from GraphCMS when content changes.
Okay, so I'm going to make a simple API route called revalidate. So to access this API route, you will do something like a slice API, revalidate. Also, you asked before about catch-all routes. API routes also have that, so I could call these dots revalidate, and this will catch all paths.
So wait, what's with the dot?
So that's this means it is a catch-all route, right? So we have dynamic routes. So in this case,
yeah. So for the audience, dynamic routes are whatever you put in brackets become query parameters or request parameters to the API route, which also works for page routes. But the dot dot dot, that's a new voodoo to me. What's
Yeah, so for example, dynamic rules, it will validate this one. So this will be handled by this page. The page
Mhm.
will receive a prof call like this, revalidate, and then yeah. So this is the query param, and this is the name of the query param, right? That
Mhm.
is the name that is between the brackets.
Yeah.
But this page, well, it will also handle something else, like something else. But it is not going to handle something that has more like the level of, well, more than one level. So for example, something when that I put else, this is another level, like
Oh,
another folder.
were you using dot dot dot? So rest. So you're spreading the parameters.
Yeah, so when I
Okay. I thought it
I
was like a
use this
directory thing, like a dot dot.
and do any number of paths,
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I will receive those here like in an array of paths.
Mhm.
So that's the
Yeah,
difference.
yeah. Okay. I thought
Um,
this was a directory dot dot, like moving up a directory or something, and I was like, wait a minute, this is something I'm not familiar with.
yeah, so
Okay.
those rules apply for both pages and API routes. The router is completely it works in the same way for both sides. So I'm going to spawn a scene function that
And while you're
receives
writing that,
request.
the reason why I was asking about the catch-all routes is because it could be interesting. One of the things that Next provides is the ability to do server-side analytics, where you're able to see page visits and things like that. Instead of having to run those on the client, you could do really easy implementation of server-side analytics to be able to track how many page visits. You could even increment GraphCMS, like the article in GraphCMS, for how many page views it's had, so you can get a popularity filter as well. So yeah, that was why I kind of was thinking about. But this is going to be really interesting here.
So in order to revalidate the page manually, I only have to do things. First, I have to end the response because I assume the webhook doesn't need any kind of response, maybe. And then I need to make a fetch call just for like whatever I want to um, yeah, for whatever page I want to revalidate. So I can make a fetch call and just make sure that it returns something, and that should be enough to like replicate someone going to the page and
Well,
trigger
we
the validation.
we can actually do it. So we don't even have to replicate it. We can do it as a webhook inside of GraphCMS with the project.
Okay, so how do I set up a webhook?
So go to settings. Oh, sorry, not settings. The one above settings,
Oh,
webhooks,
webhooks.
and we'll go ahead and create one. And in this case, we're going to. So if you leave all the, you have to give it a title and stuff and the URL. But if you leave all of the triggers blank, they act as catch-alls. So basically, it'll fire a webhook on every behavior. It's not usually wanted behavior. So we'll call this, we'll give it a title at the top called cache invalidation. And then we'll give it the URL that's supposed to call, which we'll just need to use our API route for.
So that would be this URL and change it to API/revalidate. Should do it right.
Mm-hmm. And then on the
Um,
content model, we'll just drop down and grab our, I think it's post, is what it is. Yeah, post. So anytime a post changes, we'll do this trigger. We could also add author in there. We support union types. So we could say anytime post and author change. If you go back up there, yeah. And then on the stage, we'll say just in published, for example, in this case. We won't worry about the other one because the preview URLs are
mhm.
fresh anyways. And then on the action, so it's the published content stage, and the action itself is going to be published as well. So if we go to publish, so anytime new content gets published, we'll trigger this. We could also pass in some headers, but in this case, we're not
All
going to
right,
worry
this
about it. But
no, this
if you
actually
want to. Let's do
quote
it.
come in handy. Yeah. So because when you deploy something to Vercel, it gives you a how should I say this? It gives you like a random URL, right? So usually what you want is to have a permanent URL, but I don't have that in the app. So what I can do here is use an environment variable to set my URL or put it here manually, or I could use one of these headers. But I'm not sure if that would be better, to be honest.
Yeah,
But
this would be more like if you wanted to avoid somebody running up your bill on.
yeah.
I guess you have unlimited runtime, but if like somebody was just hammering your webhook or your endpoint, so this would be a way to validate and say, okay, ignore the ignore the haters.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to assume that Vercel is going to keep deploying my app to production in this URL. So I'm going to call that send URL, and here. So what am I going to get when the web
Let's.
calls?
So what we should do is we should probably just prove that this works real quick. So we'll kind of show a case where it's not
Yep.
updated, and then we'll do. So right now the deployed version does not have the revalidate flag. Which does it have a default, a sensible default, or does it run every time or no? Get static
Um,
props.
it will only run at a maximum of once every second, or
I
does
was
it
saying
go
so at the moment the production environment for get static props does not have the
at the moment? No,
revalidate
but
set.
I can
So
make a
does it
deployment.
have it? Does it have a default um, fetch for props or no?
So by default, it is not going to revalidate, which is okay. You might have content that you don't want to revalidate never. So it is going to be always static. I mean, in both cases, it is always static, but in the case of revalidation, you can also trigger a serverless function to update it.
So if we updated the title in GraphCMS, published it, we should still see the old title until we dump cache or do a hard cache reset. In
Until you do a page refresh, basically.
okay, so this
Yeah.
will revalidate on the page without a refresh,
You
or
will
no?
only need to refresh because, well, basically you are getting a new static page, static HTML, and we don't have like dynamic content with JS or anything like that. No, that's just a static
Okay,
HTML.
okay, all right. So there's no state happening.
So what should I do here to know the post? Maybe I can just test this out. What is the webhook going to send me?
Well, so it's just going to send a basic payload of the all the simple fields. So none of the relations. It'll just send a full payload of the title, the body, things like that.
So for now, I guess I'm just going for the index page, just the index page every time.
In this case, yeah,
Um,
it probably makes sense. Yeah, but it could be
and
scoped, right? It could be grabbing the actual slug from the post and updating just that page.
so let's do some error handling. So this is okay. Yeah, it should do it. And if that's okay, then it's just going to end. That's an error. Um, yep, probably should go. Yeah, no error. Not really sure what I just did, but to be honest, I think only making the fetch call should be enough to trigger the revalidation. So now I'm going to push this, or better just make a new production deployment.
And so I'm trying to wrap my mind around again. So in the case, if we were using the get static props and then populating some kind of a state on the page for the post content, then that would in theory refresh on the page if we did this webhook approach. Or so you get static props refetches every time the page is reloaded, right? Without
Um,
without revalidation set.
Without revalidation, every time you refresh, you get the same HTML and the same CSS, well, the same static assets that you generated at build time with
And build
NCS.
time, okay. And then with the revalidate set to something like 5, it's not rebuilding those assets though, is it?
With revalidate set at something as 5, it will be revalidated every 5 seconds. Basically.
Yeah.
So mm,
I'm curious what's actually happening in the background there. So it's not running a build every 5 seconds, right?
no, it is running a serverless function that generates that same page in the
Okay.
background
Okay.
in Vercel.
So it's just doing that specific page.
Yeah,
It
that
is
specific page.
rebuilding that page
Yep,
every 5 seconds.
exactly.
Dang.
So I should have a new deployment. I'm going to check that out. To 2 minutes ago, that sounds about right.
I like how your verification process is identical to mine. 2 minutes ago, that sounds about what I went through.
So this is the blog, right? And guess I'm just going to publish a blog post
Yep.
to change content. Here's this. So connecting multiple platforms together. Not sure which one is it.
That's the authors there. So if you go down to posts,
All right. Connecting multiple. Connecting. Yeah, just released.
so what I'm curious about is if there was like a mechanism for then saying, don't worry about revalidation and just revalidate once I trigger this webhook that calls a special mechanism, then that would be.
So basically, that's what is gonna happen. So the webhook is called, then you will go to the API route that I just created.
Mhm.
Then the API route is making a fetch call for the index page, and so once I go now to the index page and I refresh this page, because the API route already called it, it should be already validated, right?
Did the webhook get saved? I just verify that this webhook actually got saved.
I don't know. I
No.
think it did.
I was just wondering if we'd actually done that.
If I refresh this, it's not updated.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. So we want the grand reveal to be special, right? So we don't want to do the whole and now nothing.
I will revalidate, but no, I showed how it didn't work. Now I'm going to show how it does work.
I gave a conference talk once about errors, and then I was trying to demonstrate React error boundaries, and was previewing local development and not my published, or I was previewing the published and development but not localhost, where my changes were actually happening. Like, well, I can't create an error for the life of me on stage. So yeah, when you want to make an error, you can't. Yeah. So good. We have it set. So I'm assuming I didn't catch the URL, but I think you've got it set up there just fine. So did you get the publish stage, publish content, all of that defined? I
So I'm
didn't
going
actually check,
to
but
just release it again.
again, save and publish. Yeah. Did you save and publish it?
Wait, what is update? Why did this update? Was it? Was it the webhook? Oh no, it was the revelation of every second, right?
One
So
second. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this case, because I refreshed the page some seconds ago, now if I once I see the page again, it is already dead. Again, the webhook is very useful if you have, for example, pages that don't get a lot of views, to make sure that there is not a single user that gets the all content.
Yeah. I mean, COVID-19 era. There's a lot of use cases where you want to make sure that everybody gets the same data, right? So
Yeah,
there are cases. I don't think you hit save and publish on the
I didn't. I'm just making sure. I'm a little
yeah,
bit paranoid right now. So I'm going to save and
save and
polish.
publish. Yeah.
And so the webhook was triggered, right?
Yes, we don't have logs yet to indicate that it got triggered, but we have a pretty robust system, so we guarantee that it will always be triggered exactly once.
Okay.
So it will always get delivered, even if the system crashes. When it picks back up, it'll just
So
deliver.
I'm going to refresh the page and I'm going to assume it worked. I don't know. And it didn't. It didn't work. Did it? No. So the good things about this is gonna add some logs and see what happened.
Yeah.
Not sure this is going to be something in the query. Maybe there is. And then I can put logs here. Very long, so I'm going to put just the length. What's happening? Yep, that sounds good to me. I'm going to make another deployment.
I'm just doing some quick reading on the 9.4 announcement about the revalidate key.
Some spoilers, it is great.
No, what's that?
It is great.
It's great. Spoiler alert, it's great.
I mean, I'm not a sellout, okay? It's not like I
Yeah.
work in SES or something.
Yeah. Unbiased opinion.
Very unbiased. So, see the latest deployment. Then I'm going to see some logs here for API revalidate. There are no logs right now. And what I'm going to do is use title.
Well, it's actually an interesting. It's not so relevant for GraphCMS because we're hosted, so there's generally a really high uptime with our API. But if you were using, for example, like a self-hosted head of the CMS solution, when you trigger the revalidate, if for whatever reason that page fails the build, the old page stays up. So that's the issue there. Did you misspell function?
Did I? So I guess functions do need a name.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Oh man, look, now that it is actually working, my editor is applying formatting and everything. It's very good.
Prettier. We need to just trust prettier. If it doesn't format, yeah.
So now I know why it didn't work.
If it ain't
So
pretty, it ain't proper.
yep. So one thing about Vercel, you can see the logs for every API route that you add.
It's great. Yeah.
This AI that it uses the memory size that it has. Um, you can also focus only on the errors, which is great.
Mm. Yeah, so that's. I mean, this is one of the reasons why we really like Next. I mean, we like a lot of the frameworks. So I mean, we gotta be fair, but it's just I haven't come across a use case that I wasn't able to either get up and running really fast for a sample, like just a quick dirty website, just pop it up, get it out. Also, then super complex. So like it just covered all the use case. And I don't know. I mean, I do developer relations, so I do a lot of like quick little websites or tutorials or training things. And there's so many times when I'm just typing in. Well, back in the day it was now, but like just typing in Vercel and deploy the site, and it's like running, and it's just such a nice experience.
It looks like it failed again.
See what the log
So
says there. Can you bump the font size so we can see what the error is?
solver is not a function. That means I don't have any resolver. So I'm going to assume that I did something wrong again. Um, to hide the stuff.
Normally you would do these things on localhost for the audience and not just
Yeah,
directly on
so this what
the
happens is that because I don't have the keys in localhost.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Which we can add, but
actually, I don't need the keys for this. I'm
oh
just
yeah.
I need to run
Well,
this.
you do need the keys for the for so the webhook's not going to trigger locally for you, right?
Right, but I can trigger manually.
Yeah. Will it build
See
if
why
it's
it's
not
so
able to fetch
broken.
the content?
So original function at API resolver. Oh my gosh, that's so weird. Something is broken, and it seems to be continually broken again. So it's rest that end. It's- oh boy.
Okay.
Oh my god.
What's
Oh my god. I'm an idiot, man. So of course the resolver is not
node?
functional because I'm not exporting the resolver. Oh right, no, it works. No,
Check
this
that out.
100%. This sign it is definitely
Check that out.
definitely gonna work. So yeah, you always have to export the default as that's the resolver that you wanna run. That's on NGS 101 that I don't know.
No, it's live stream. It's the curse of live stream. I had that with another very accomplished developer, and we were trying to use, I think instead of bare auth, we were using basic auth, and it was just like, yeah, not the
So,
correct.
so something very nice. The deployment is 34 seconds. It is almost dead mode. So this one took 30 seconds. Now I'm going to see again the functions. This should work this time. So say this.
This is the final -2.
So I can see here the body that the webhook is sending me.
Yeah.
So operation published data, there's some graph. I guess it's going to, yeah, it is including some of the data of the post. Also, oh, well, this is draft, this is Polish.
It's getting the full payload, yeah.
The core is empty and the response 200. This is the response of the fetch I did to the HTML page. So that should mean the page trigger a revalidation. So now if I refresh here, God damn. I'm not sure that that works. Probably.
So I mean, it is unstable. So what we can try doing is putting this in incognito window, and just to remove any influence from anything else. Did you hit save and publish in GraphCMS?
Oh, you know what? I didn't do that.
I'm just wondering.
That's I don't think I published. The title is not updated. And the police. Not so sure. Let's see. Oh my god, it worked! Oh, that's so nice.
That is really cool. I mean, so with the 1 second revalidation, I mean,
And to try it again, it's pretty nice.
That handles a lot of cases. When you need to really say nobody should see stale content, that is also very, very critical. The
3 requests, 4 requests. Yeah, that sounds about right. If I go here, I refresh twice. So probably I still have to like some kind of check with the response here. Not sure like this is the first time I actually do this. For in theory it should work. You just have to make sure that you are getting the HTML back, which means that the page has triggered the revalidation. In the future, what we might do with Nest.js is like actually provide you a very easy way to like do the same thing for any page. Yeah.
Well, and you could with the dynamic API routes too. The one question I have as well is, so I think a feature that'd be really impressive is if you can say, don't worry about revalidating the page unless, and then only trigger that via the webhook. So kind of saying, just update these 2 or 3 pages when my content changes. And so basically this exact same thing, but without the revalidate set to 1, so that it says only rebuild that 1 page when I need it. And
Yeah, that could also be possible. The good thing about revalidate is that because it is always a background process, you never get like any slowdown for any one of your users. And it is also very cheap because again, yeah, like if you have millions of requests every day to a page or to multiple pages, the maximum time you're going to revalidate is once every second. Right? You only have to regenerate once and then serve the same HTML.
That's really impressive stuff. So I mean, I think, let's see how long we've been streaming here. So we've been going for about an hour, and want to be sensitive with your time as well. So that, I mean, it's those that haven't been in the industry that long. And I feel like I'm keep getting these reconnecting notices from our platform here, so I'm not quite sure why it kind of freaks out a little bit. But for those that haven't been around it that long, kind kind of doesn't seem probably that special, but the ability to actually create a website, have it powered by a super flexible dynamic CMS, have it be deployed to a bunch of little microservers all around the world for you automatically. It's just it's pretty darn magical.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Also, to keep in mind, like even though a lot of the features are related to Vercel because Vercel like makes sure that the catch works and that the edge works. Um, all of the features are only for Nest.js, meaning that you can still deploy Nest.js into any other platform and it is going to work. Very in a very similar behavior. It depends on how the platform implements Nest.js, but all the features are built in Nest.js. Vercel, what Vercel does is provide you with a first-class platform for Nest.js.
And other things too, because you can do the API routes
Yeah.
standalone just in the Vercel environment. I did that for a project. I did a recently what I called Hazura Fit because it was using Hazura and GraphCMS to make a fitness thing, and I needed a simple webhook that would then update GraphCMS for the like a popularity field on a workout. And I just created a really fast API route, 2 files or something like that. Uploaded it to Vercel, and I had my hosted webhook for me ready to go. And it's a really really strong primitive. That's. Is there anything else you would like to mention or show about either Vercel or Next?
Um, well, I can show something here in SGS side. So whenever we see new people comment on SGS, the best thing uh, you c- you can do is go to our learn site. Here you will get like understanding of how SGS works, and you will also get to build your own blog. It goes through our most important features like routing, how pages work, data fetching, including get site props. And so, if you have like any doubts or want to know more about Nest.js, please come to Nest.js slash learn. And then we have our talks in the same site. And if you see any issue or want to contribute to Nest.js, feel free to go to github/personal/Nest.js, and the entire community lives here. We don't have any like external Slack or Discord channel. No, we have just our GitHub. We have discussions, issues, and pull requests. Feel free to join.
That is great. Yeah, and the team has always been very responsive to all of our questions as well. That's super helpful.
Yeah,
So mhm,
we are a small team, but we try to make our best effort to help with the concerns that are constantly coming out in the community. We also have a lot of very proud community members like Jess Moiser keeps answering questions every day in the NSGS community, and like him, we have many other people that are very active in our community.
that's great. And yeah, so I would really encourage anybody that's wanting to get in, who's a JavaScript developer, but really wanting to go in on a framework that's going to be able to support nearly any type of application they would want to build for a web client, is to really check out Next.js. I would recommend you use GraphCMS to power that content. But like I mean, I've built podcast examples. I've built fitness health trackers. I've built um, a wine database, beer logging platform. I built all kinds of crazy little tutorials. I mean, with GraphCMS, of course, but I generally always go to Next these days because it just supports any quirky functionality that I need it to support for something that I'm doing, whether it's the webhooks, whether it's the API routes or dynamic routes or anything else. It just supports everything. So when you have flexibility, and that's something that GraphCMS believes strongly in, when you have flexible tools that allow you to really just get out of your way to build, it's really a an impressive environment, and just developer velocity is the only way you could really describe it. Is it really helps you get up and off the ground quickly. So I would say we can go ahead and wrap it because we had a bit of a slower start getting started. I apologize for my goof with the starting of the stream. I really, really, really appreciate you coming on. It was a lot of fun. I would love to have you on for the next feature release or announcement that you guys happen to have going, and then I'll code it so people can laugh at me. And I'm a way worse coder than you, so that'll be much more entertaining for sure. I'm not calling you a bad coder. I'm just saying I am a bad coder, so it will be more entertaining to watch that. Trying to pull back from that one. Yeah, check out GraphCMS. We just launched a whole bunch of new features, 2,500 entries per project, unlimited projects for developers, webhooks. I mean, pretty cool stuff. Check out the new, and Vercel also has an amazing developer tier. I mean, like you said, unlimited build time, unlimited bandwidth. Like, what? So putting those two together, there's really not anything you can't build for as a developer these days. So I would recommend checking them both out. Thanks again to Luis for joining us. Where can they find you on Twitter to find out more about what you're up to?
So my Twitter is Luis_Fates. Also, Jesse, thank you a lot for having me. It's been great. It's been a great experience to do light debugging. Yeah, that was great.
Don't forget the defaults.
Yeah, I've been knowing GraphCMS for a long time. I remember that you guys came out like about the time that Apollo came out, and the site has been changing a lot. I once even did a how is this called, like a when I was looking for a job, I one of the places I applied to was GraphCMS. I didn't pass, but I'm pretty sure I was close. Yeah, it was also a great experience. I think I got to know the two owners of GraphCMS, or two of the more main core devs at that time, because that was many years ago. And it was a great experience. I see that GraphCMS has developed a lot, and I love it.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sad that that it didn't work out the first time.
No, that's fine.
We also had startup, start, stop, continue kind of trajectory in the early years too, as far as hiring, and then all of a sudden, let's wait a little bit, and then so it may have also been something related to that as well. But we just landed some more funding, as you guys have as well, and so
Yeah.
we're always looking for good talent still, and not sure about you guys. Are you guys hiring or?
We're currently not hiring.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
But you have a
I
jobs
don't know.
page though, right?
Yes, we have a jobs page. I mean, it's not that we're not hiring. It's more that we are looking for new people, but we always have like a jobs page open for, like, you feel like you want to work with us. Feel free to send us your resume and anything, and we'll try to take a look if we have the time. We are just currently looking, if I'm not wrong, for security, but it's still a very long process, to be honest.
Yeah. So if you're a WizCrack JavaScript developer and happens to be a security guru, definitely check out Next.js or the Vercel team. If you're also GraphQL wizard and love that whole world, we're always looking for good devs too. So yeah, thanks again. We'll call that a wrap on the stream. And once again, thank you so much for joining today. It was a lot of fun. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye bye.